Well, welcome to the ACA Sales Club. I'm your host, Wayne Dean. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I've been a sales and management trainer for over 25 years. My bio is up here, and I know sometimes I hate when we start these kind of webinars and we spend so much time on the bio of the speaker. But if you think that I have any validity or why did I have the right to stand in front of anybody and talk about sales training, it is because I've done it for many, many years, and more details about my bio would be available if anybody wants to go to my YouTube channel. Again, my YouTube channel is just YouTube and then my name, Wayne Dean. I have hundreds of training tips and videos already posted there that anybody can go look at. So our whole program that we do for the ACA every month is on my steps to success, my proprietary selling system. Last week we did the introduction of understanding the steps to success, which are size up the situation, take them to their pain, extend the pain, improve future, propose a solution, show them how your solution solves their problem. Anybody can go to the YouTube channel and watch last week's, and anybody that does come into my weekly training class would really need to go through the introductory program that we did that is again available on the YouTube channel and get an idea of what our whole system is. And then each week I'm going to be able to do a training for you. But I'd like to say that I stand before you today as a hypocrite, obviously a person who finds some desire or publicity approval attitude on a behavior, especially ones whose passions for life or statements really aren't the same as his statements that I make. So let me explain to why I say I'm a hypocrite as far as sitting here and talking about sales and prospecting. A couple years ago, I didn't do the behaviors necessary to make the money I had done in years before. I had many excuses, and I'm going to put up a couple slides here, and there's not to try and get pity or sorrow from anybody, but to explain to you why I said, boy, I'm not going to do the behaviors I did before. I woke up one morning, I had Bell's palsy. If anybody doesn't know what Bell's palsy is, the left side of my face just started to slide down my face, and there's a nerve in the back of your neck, the ulnar nerve, that controls feeling and function. And I literally lost all function on the side of my face. And most people, it comes back. But during that diagnosis, when I thought I was having a stroke, they said, "Oh, you also have diabetes. You have Rayner's disease." I mean, I went from being a healthy person one day to all of a sudden, oh my God, all these things that are happening. Well, I actually passed my son in the emergency room because I'm in the emergency room. My son broke his hand playing basketball and had to have surgery to put in some links in his hand. So now I'm in the hospital, my son's in the hospital, and then this happened. My wife fell down our stairs and she really had a serious injury. She broke her wrist at 90-degree angle right at the joint. She had internal injuries. She broke the T9 in her back. She really had some major problems, and she was in a body cast for 6 months because of these injuries that she had, and they are unfortunately still lingering today. She lost one of her kidneys from this fall. It was a serious fall. Now, all this is going in my life, and what's happening is I thought the reason that I didn't do, this kind of numbers that I had done before as far as sales and building up my business was because of these circumstances. But quite frankly, why I said I'm a hypocrite is because I really had just stopped doing the necessary behaviors to go prospect to see enough people. It really wasn't the circumstances, it was how I reacted to the circumstances, and I wasn't doing the necessary work. So I needed a paradigm shift in order to change my behaviors. And if you're not familiar with a paradigm, really a paradigm is a change from one belief or way of thinking to another. Some people put it as a paradigm shift is a change from a mistaken belief in an old identity also. And let me give you an example, the bicycle seat. When the bicycle first was invented and they needed to make a seat for it, they went to the saddle makers. And saddle makers who had made, saddles for horses made a bicycle seat kind of in the same way as a saddle. If you think about it, it's not extremely comfortable at all. But years ago, a guy in Minnesota invented the new seat, the one that cups your butt and cheeks. And it's really, if you think about the difference between this seat and this seat, this is such a much better deal. But people couldn't change the focus, couldn't change, and especially the Schwinn and the other bicycle manufacturers couldn't make a paradigm shift to change what really should be on all bikes, this type of a seat. Another paradigm shift is, do you know who invented the digital watch? Well, most people would say the Japanese. And in fact, in 1973, the first liquid crystal digital watch in the world, and it was commercialized by Seiko. But quite frankly, what happened is the Swiss actually had 50% of the world's watch market in 1954. Everybody thought that the Swiss obviously had the best quality engineering, but the Swiss actually invented the first electric watch. But what happened is when the inventors of the watch went to all of the owners of the watch companies, they couldn't make the paradigm shift from gears and switches and all that stuff to a patent on another watch. And what happened is they let the patent run out on the digital watch. The Japanese took it, and look what happened because they couldn't make a paradigm shift. In the 70s, they had 50% of the world's watch market in Switzerland. Now they only have 10% of the watch market because of the digital watches, and they were the ones who actually invented the digital watch, but they couldn't make that paradigm shift from gears to electronics. No, the average US car gets 24 miles to the gallon. In Europe, the average car gets 20% more fuel economy, and some say it's due to the imperial gallon comparison, and some say it's different testing methods. But it's really mostly due to the difference in diesel fuels in Europe compared to diesel fuels in the United States. For years, people in the United States thought diesel was, dirty. The engines were harder to start in cold weather. And so we couldn't make that shift in the United States from regular gas to diesel, where Europe had to, and they've made that shift, and they actually have the emissions and they've got all of the other technology to run a very clean engine in the European cars. Matter of fact, if you buy a European car with a diesel engine in Europe, it's completely than a European-made car that's sold and manufactured in the United States. But again, people couldn't make that paradigm shift. This is one that was really interesting to me, shift from natural fertilizer to artificial. The world was projected to have 6.5 billion people by the turn of the 20th century, but they only had enough food supply for about 4.5 billion people. This was going to create a major, major crisis. And what was happening is Chile and Peru were the OPEC of the time because they manufactured bat guano, which was fertilizer, and the supply was dwindling, and there wasn't an available alternative for farmers to create fertilizer to make more food to feed this growing world population. But Karl Bosch and Fritz from BASF, what they did is they came up with how to create nitrogen fertilizer out of air. And most people are totally unaware today that the world faced such a life-threatening crisis back then, and that BASF Corporation played such a significant role in solving a world problem. But the solution was they had to get farmers to take this paradigm shift from natural fertilizer that they always had to artificial fertilizer. And it took several years for farmers to realize that they could take this artificial fertilizer and get better results than the natural fertilizer. But again, farmers across the country had to have a paradigm shift. And then my last one is think about a paradigm shift on how to ride a bicycle. Most of us, if we were taught to ride a bicycle or we're riding or we're teaching our kids how to ride a bicycle, we put them on training rules and they go on for a while. And then we take the training wheels off. And then in the picture, like in the left bottom, we run along with them. We take them on a flat road. And usually it's either a paved road or a gravel road. It's a kind of road where the kids are afraid because if I fall, I'm going to get scratched up. I'm wearing shorts in the one picture here. But we'd run along, get them going fast enough, and we say to the kids, pedal, steer, balance. And we got all this information in their head. And we're trying to get kids, and sometimes they go along, but it takes a while sometimes to teach these kids how to ride a bike in that methodology. But I've got a method I can show you that can teach any kid to ride a bike in about 10 minutes. What you do is you remove the training wheels and you remove the pedals also. Take the pedals off, raise the seats up so that the kids are straddling the bicycle with their feet touching the ground. So they still, as far as balance, are right there with their feet touching the ground, and they're not worried about pedaling. And then what you do is you take them to a hill, small hill, so if they fall, they're falling on grass. Put them on a grass hill. But now what happens is you just stand in front of the kid with the handlebars pointing towards you, and you just get him used to going down the hill. Now remember, the kid's not worried about pedaling. The inertia, gravity gets them the momentum going forward, and they've got their feet on the ground so that they can get used to balance and they go propel themselves. And even if they fall in the grass, but they get going. Now, after a couple times down the hill, the kid's getting used to this and got balance. Now you put the pedals back on, and the kids can go right down, and I'll guarantee they take off right away because it is a paradigm shift on how we were taught how to ride a bicycle to this new way for teaching kids how to ride a bicycle. So now you're saying, okay, Wayne, good stories, but what does that have to do with sales? Well, I think that sales or prospecting should be like I call it the wheel of fortune. A bicycle wheel is only strong as the number of spokes in that wheel. If your spokes, as far as your prospecting and sales, are only one or two things, activities, that wheel's going to collapse. So I talk about what are you doing? What's your wheel of fortune to create new leads? Are you networking? Are you thinking about, hey, those business cards that are on the right-hand side of my desk drawer aren't really doing any good in there? Am I distributing the business cards? Am I following the 3-foot rule that I get within 3 foot of somebody, they get my business card? And I'm glad Cassie's on from the Chamber of Commerce. Are you going to chamber events? Are we thinking about when I go to a networking event, I follow this rule. When I go to a networking event, I get to leave when I either collect or give out 5 business cards. And what I mean by that, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to go to that 5 to 7 after hours chamber event. I've already put in my 40, 45 hours a week. And they think, oh, I got to be there for 2 hours. No, go to a networking event with a specific goal in mind that I'm going to give out. And it's kind of funny if you walk into somebody and the two people are talking at a networking event and you just interrupt them and say, hey, would you guys take my business card so I can leave? They go, what? Well, I have a rule that as soon as I collect or give out 5 business cards, I get to leave. And the person goes, that's a great rule. And then they start engaging with you. Are you doing free talks? Are you calling the Rotary, the Lions Club, the Moose Lodge, all these social service organizations that are looking for speakers to come in and talk to them about what might be going on in the world? Develop a free talk that you can go in and give some knowledge or information to somebody. One of my trainers we'll talk about the no pressure sales call. We'll talk about the LinkedIn. We'll talk about referrals, how to get referrals, survey letters, all these different activities. So the way I teach most people is this. You get to go home on Friday night and have a guilt-free weekend if you checked off all of these activities that you said you were going to do. And that's really the key as far as changing a paradigm. When one thinks about sales, too many people think about the sale itself, the sale numbers. The problem is they haven't done the behaviors to get in front of enough people. So I want you to put it all together, and I use this bicycle analogy. I want you to think about it this way: the rear wheel of the bicycle is all the activities that you're doing. Are you playing lost? And what I mean by playing lost is just going and people will say, "Hey, I'm lost. Can you help me?" People love to help people that are lost. So are you going into something, hey, I'm lost. I'm looking for this business that you might have a card or a lead on, but you go to the business next door and play lost and say, I'm looking for this place. Do you know where that? And then, oh, they're right next door. Why? What do you do? And you can get engaged in conversation by playing lost. Are you doing 20 letters to people on LinkedIn saying, hey, I see you're connected to so-and-so. Can you help me get connection with that? Referrals. Here's my rule on referrals. You can't expect and get a referral unless you're giving them. Are you giving out 2 referrals a week? Are you playing matchmaker and trying to match people? As soon as you go on your LinkedIn profile and you just start looking about who should you be connecting other people with, you'll start to get those people feel like they have to reciprocate and give you a referral. So remember that real wheels, all those Wheel of Fortune activities we talked about, how many spikes you have in it. The front wheel of your bicycle is having a selling system. You know, if I ask most salespeople, do you have a selling system? Or describe it to me on a vanity license plate. Describe from your selling system. Most salespeople would be wing it because they just go in and, well, I do a needs analysis, I do a warm up, but they don't have a specific step-by-step approach. Systems work, people fail to work systems. So in my system, what we teach you is to size up the prospect. Who is this person? How do they process information so that I can present my information on the best way this person would receive it? What is their problem? Let's have a real conversation about what their problem is before I start talking about how I'm going to solve it. Let's extend the problem in the future. What describe for me what it's like from now a year because you did join the Chamber of Commerce. How would you hope that the joining the chamber helped your business? What do you think will happen if you don't buy my product or service? Let's describe that. And then you propose a solution to it. Too many salespeople are guilty of premature presentation. They're pitching before they fully understand the problem. And they start just automatically going into benefits and features. The benefit. I've been in business since 1975. Okay, that's the feature, but why is that a benefit to me? Let's have a. I don't really care about your features. I care about my problem and can you solve it? So following a systematic approach. And then the last thing I say is, goals are important because goals steer you in the right direction. The idea of having a goal is not necessarily that you're always going to achieve it, but you're heading in that direction. And a lot of people, they don't set goals and do a whole training on goal setting because they're afraid that they're not going to achieve those goals. But what did they accomplish along the way? So the idea is put all this stuff together and say, as far as my paradigm, am I thinking about this like a bicycle? Did I think of a new way to ride and learn how to ride this bicycle than the old way of just running as fast as I can? Am I thinking about the things that I have to do prospecting wise? Am I following a systematic approach to it? And do I have goals that point me in the right direction? Now, quite frankly, before when I told you about I needed a paradigm shift, I was really doing this. But there's a new way of revving up systems. If anybody looked at the most recent ways of these ATVs, where they used to have a wheel, now they've got these big gears and tires and everything. And I want you to think of every one of these little tires here, these little round circles, as another wheel of fortune, if you will. And the networking events, are you doing cold calling? Are you walking and talking, just going to businesses? Are you doing your LinkedIn? Are you asking for referrals? Are you really doing a good job of qualifying somebody? Does this person really have a need that you can solve? Did you bond with that people? Remember, bond and rapport is the French word for come together. People buy from people they like and they trust, and people like and trust people like themselves. So, what did you do to build upon that relationship before you started pitching on your product or service? And have you really learned how to close? There's a lot of salespeople that I just envy. They're great at presentations. They've got the skills. They're great at presentation, but they don't know how to close. Wouldn't it be great if there weren't any stalls and objections by the time you go to close? And that's one of the trainings that we do is teach you how to go through a process and sit there and say, just like a doctor, if a doctor diagnoses what's wrong with you, and says, well, you just got some muscle problem here. Here, I'm going to diagnose some muscle relaxers for you. And he hands you a prescription. We go fill that prescription. We don't think, oh, come on, doctor, you got to close me harder than that. See, a true salesperson diagnoses what's wrong with somebody and offers a product as a cure. And if you do a significant enough job, closing becomes very easy. Closing becomes difficult when you really didn't have those conversations with somebody about how your product or service can solve their problem. So what I want you to do is, again, my company is 3D Pro Services, but one of the 3D idea is this. Every one of your leads or prospects should be 3D. And here's what I mean by that. Every one of your leads, you know they're pre-selected. They could probably use your product or service. So that's what I mean by pre-selected. But preconditioned, with the way the internet is today, with emails, voicemails, everybody should know something about you before you start calling them. I mean, it's so easy to call somebody up and say, hey, did you get the email that I sent you? Or I'd send a sales snail mail. And I have a 7-step process that I send out to people so that by time I start to talk to somebody, they know something about me already. And every one of my leads is preheated. What I mean by that is they know I'll be calling, because as I do, and I teach all of my students, as you start going through a prospecting process and you start introducing your product or service, one of the things you can do is do in my last letter, I do this. I usually make my calls on Thursday starting at 7:30. If that's too early, please let me know. And by the way, self-employed small business people, if they're not working by 7:30, they're unemployed. So that's why I start at 7:30, because most self-employed people are already at 7:30. But I'm calling them, I'm telling them in my email, hey, I'm going to be calling you at 7:30 on Thursday. If during our brief phone conversation you determine there's not a need, I'm comfortable with you telling me no. However, if we discover that your organization could benefit from a relationship with me, then we'll start a free analyzation. Every one of my leads is 3D, pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated. And I want you to think of a lead as a blind date. You spend all this time networking, doing all these things to develop leads, buying lists, whatever it is. And you've done the mailers to these people or the email or a text or some type of blast to educate them on who you are and that you will be calling. So they know that you're going to be calling. Kind of like a blind date because somebody says, hey, call this person. I think you could do it, really hit it off together. Prospect knows you're going to ask him out for a date, but you still have to do and say the right things to get the prospect to agree to date. And it's kind of like, hey, I'll take the risk that you won't have a good time and that you might reject me if you'll take the risk that perhaps you will have a good time and we can develop a relationship. And that's the way you have to go into thinking about contacting potential leads. But it certainly makes it so much easier if every one of them is pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated. Think of everyone. And that's a paradigm shift that I want you to think about. Do these people know about you? And most salespeople, oh yeah, I sent them something. I sent them my newsletter. I invited them to this. Yeah, but then did you tell them when you would be calling? Did you specifically say, I'll be calling you at 7:30 on Thursday? Now, the reason this works also is this. You've just sent out maybe 20 or 30 emails, letters. You've done a campaign to a bunch of people, and you've told people you're going to call on Thursday. What does it do now that I've sent out to 20 people that I'm going to be calling? It makes me do the behavior because I told these people that I'm going to be calling them. So I might send out 20 letters to people introducing this week to what I do. I send them a newsletter. I send them another follow-up. I send them an invitation event. And by the time I send the letter says, I'm going to call you Thursday, they know something about me. Even if I don't get a hold of them on Thursday, now that's 20 people. I maybe got a hold 10, but now there's 10 more people next week. So now it's 30. I probably have over 100 people in my system that I have reached out to just haven't connected with, but it's certainly going to be a lot easier to connect with those people because I made every one of my leads 3D. And again, that's a paradigm shift because a lot of salespeople, well, I already sent them stuff. Yeah, but you just tell them that you're going to call them. So in the movie, The Untouchables might be an older reference lost on younger people, but with Sean Connery, and it was one of those things where Elliot Ness was trying to recruit the only honest cop he could find in the Chicago to help him get Capone. And when Elliot Ness says, "Come on, help me get Capone. I need you." And in his Sean Connery, like, "What are you prepared to do? If he takes out 5 of your people, you take out 10 of his." So again, what are you prepared to do as far as a paradigm shift? Did you just waste, a half hour, 35 minutes today because oh, this sounded good, it's fun, but are you really going to change behavior? And I want you to think about this way. Have you heard that saying, sales is a numbers game? You just need to get up to bat more often. Sales is not a numbers game. Prospecting is a numbers game. Because if you think about it, if you average 2 successful sales per month and you're like a 40% closer, it's really going to take 8 new prospects each month into your pipeline to keep it hydrated. Some prospects will drop out along the way. Others will make it to the presentation stages. Some will become customers, some won't. Regardless, your pipeline will continue to flow. And I just want you to think about it this way. Some will, some won't, so what? And that's what holds most salespeople back is they don't make that paradigm shift into thinking, I'm not sure that I can help everybody. I've got to do my best to go get as many blind dates as I can to see which ones might pan out. But am I every week doing those behaviors? The rear wheel of my bicycle doing all those behaviors that I said I needed to do, and I'm consistently doing them so that one week that maybe it doesn't look like I'm going to get a new client or a prospect, but did I do enough behaviors 2-3 weeks before that generate sales this week? So prospecting is job one. A couple of years ago, well, many years ago, Ford had a marketing campaign, quality's job one. They did it everywhere. They put it in their factories. They did it on their advertising, that they're trying to convince people that quality in the Ford product was job one. Well, I want you to think about it as anything that you're doing in sales is prospecting and appointment setting is job one, because without appointments, you're out of business. What are you doing to get in front of enough people each week so that some will, some won't, so what? So the call to action today is this. I wanted you to rank the current prospecting activities, the things that you are doing. cold calling, going to networking events, asking for referrals, talks, seminars, mailings, advertise, and then list it as whether it's an active or a passive activity. An active activity is one that you can do and will do the necessary behaviors to make the goal a reality. A passive activity is when you sit there and say, you know what, I'm really not going to do it. I put on my list, I'll do cold callings, but I hate cold calling, so I'm not going to do it. Well, only do the active things. The passive jobs, you have to think about, why am I not doing them? And I, quite frankly, again, a hypocrite. The reason I wasn't doing a lot of cold callings is because I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to be bothering these people. They don't know anything about me. And once I went to the 3D methodology, pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated, it made it so much easier to do cold calls. Today, I don't do one cold call because they know something about me. They know I'm going to be calling. So that's what I want you to do today is make a list of your current prospecting, even make a circle, make a wheel and draw spokes of what are you doing and what are you say you're doing that you're not doing. It's a passive goal, and start taking some of the other things and incorporating more time into those so that you can create a better wheel of fortune. All right, a couple more slides, Dan, and then we'll be done. And if you got anybody who wants to type anything in the chat, or I'll open up the microphone, so we'll address some questions that you have, or comments, or even suggestions that you have to other people. The ACA Sales Club is going to be the second Thursday of every month, 3 p.m. Central. This is a benefit for all ACA members. And then on the third and fourth, and also I'll put that in the other Thursdays, every Thursday at 3, I will do a coaching or selling session. I've got some of my different curriculum already laid out here. Everything from customer care, sales management, enterprise selling, how to pursue clients. I've got a whole list of already a full year of sales training. So the killer curriculum has a lot of different things in it, and you can drop in at any time. So as again, once a month, we'll do this free on the second Thursday of every month for ACA members. The other Thursdays, I'll have a session, and anyone can join those for only $50 a month. And quite frankly, I used to charge $12,000 to be in my President's Club to do the same thing that I'm doing now, and with the new curriculum that I've created, and then the new content that I've created for less than $50 a month. So again, if you want more information on that, contact me. But let's hope that today, again, after you either sat here live or you're watching the video of this, that you go back and you create your wheel of fortune and you start doing an action plan as to what behaviors you need to do differently. What paradigm shift do you need to make in what it is that you are or aren't doing to make you successful? So with that, you can open up your mics, anybody, and give me any comments, if any things I missed, even if it was good. Any questions or comments from anybody?
Great job, Wayne.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
Fantastic
great.
stuff. A ton of value. Yeah, I got some ideas, right? Tips already.
Good. The number one thing that over the years that I've been a sales trainer, the number one question I get is, can I teach anybody to be good at sales, or do you have to be a naturally born salesperson? Any thoughts on how would anybody answer that? Do you think that you're good at sales just naturally, or can it be a behavior that is taught?
Fully taught.
Can be taught.
It can
Cassidy?
be taught.
Can
Yeah,
be?
I think it can be taught.
I can teach anybody techniques. What I can't teach is the ability to deal with rejection. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Successful salespeople do not let rejection bother them. Because I want you to think about it this way. If you ever hear no from a prospect, I just want you to, the words in your mind should be, it's a no for now, not forever. Maybe today you couldn't solve their problem at a price they could afford. Maybe today, Cassidy, that person doesn't see the value in joining the Chamber of Commerce, but they're not rejecting you. They're just saying the timing might not be right. That doesn't mean that 6 months from now, all of a sudden they get a big client, they think they can afford the money, that they wouldn't call you back. But so many salespeople get discouraged by that no. Now they got 2 no's today, and they were supposed to spend the rest of the afternoon cold calling. And so now they don't do it. They go out and they do some other behavior. So I can teach anybody sales techniques, but you need to understand that no is not a bad thing. Problem is, our mama said to us when we were a kid, over 200 times a day, no. Really, the average toddler hears no 200 times a day because they hear no, 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 no. And so we think no's a bad thing. No just means that you didn't solve the problem at a price they can afford, or they didn't see how you could solve their problem. They didn't personally reject you. So if anybody listening to this is struggling with the no's, please call me. We'll have an individual coaching session so that we get through that whole process, because if you can't handle no, you shouldn't be in sales and nothing else happens. So any other comments from Deborah, Cassidy, Martin, anybody?
I thought that was great. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Okay. What was great though? I appreciate when people say that, but is there anything specific that you're going to take away from today?
Yeah, I actually, that first slide that you talked about creating leads, how there were, I wrote it down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different. Yes, this one. Yes. I really liked that. I saw personally like cracks where I could do better, such as like LinkedIn. I really need to be better about that for the chamber and myself. And I also loved how you said to give out 500 business cards each month. I also struggle with that. And I think that that's very important. So that really stuck out to me.
So you'll appreciate this, knowing from this area, the Colorado Eagles, I have tickets to the hockey game. Love them. They're fantastic, just down the street from me. But I take about 200 cards with me, because when they score a goal, I go, yay, and I throw my business cards up like confetti and they float down into the crowd. Every time. Now I still mail my payments to my for my electrical bill, my gas bill. Most people do it but I still mail them. But every time I send out a letter or a bill, I put my business card in it. I got a call last year from Lay, says, Wayne, you don't know me, but I've got about a dozen of your business cards because I open the mail here at We Energies. And so every time I open the mail, your business card pops out. My husband decided he's going to start his own business. He could use sales training. And I got a huge contract from doing that. My point is, business cards are the cheapest form of advertising that we have, but most people, they're still in that left-hand drawer of their desk in a big box, and they only take them out once in a while. You should be ordering 500 business cards a month. This is the cheapest way that you can get. This should be a standing order. I have a standing order on business cards for 500 a month, and I feel bad if I don't go through them. So yeah, the 3-foot rule, free talks, networking, whatever it is that you like to do. Again, this slide, Cassidy, was important this way. You get to go home on a Friday night and have a guilt-free weekend because you checked off all these behaviors you said you were going to do. You can't control how many sales you make. You can't control whether you're, the person you do call has money, can afford your product or service. You can't control somebody else's pocketbook, but you can control the behaviors you did to talk to enough people. That's the only thing you really can control. And so that's why I think this slide is one of the most important ones I do in any of my training, is to get people to create this wheel of fortune of activities that they're going to do on a consistent basis. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else? Okay, well, then we will let you go. I will send out, Martin, we can send out the link to everybody if anybody wants to watch this video too. Once it's set. Any other comments or questions or statements, Martin?
Yeah, no, that's really great. So I know some people couldn't make it today.
Okay.
For sure. So thank you.
All right. Well, then, for those of you that are watching, we have another one again next week. For next couple of months, it's going to be free to all people as I start to build up and show people what we do. So anybody who wants to come in on Thursday at 2 Mountain, 3 Central can join us at the same link. It's already posted at the Zoom space, and we'll go from there. All right. I will stop, and we'll have anybody call me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Appreciate it. You're welcome.